All right, so welcome everybody to the session about digital posters. We have Rebecca Thomas from Bucknell University, Sophie Karrison from IUPUI. In spirit, we have Lisa Angermeyer from IUPUI, Debbie H. Miner from IUPUI, and Jeffrey Sherman from IUPUI. And so I will maybe use the order that's listed on the website just to make sure that we're doing things in a fair and equitable way. And that means, Rebecca, we'll start with you to give a brief summary of your poster, and then you can either pose questions to the room or ask for questions, but we'll probably have everybody go through their quick pitch first, and then do a round robin of questions and conversation afterwards. Amy's here. Great. She wasn't when I was looking for names, but I'm going to spotlight Amy as well. Thanks, Jeffrey.
All right. Trying to unmute and share. Does that work? Can you hear me and see my poster?
Yes and yes.
Okay. So the poster that I'm presenting today is actually, I worked with Dr. Janet Van Loan on this, and this is really her course and her students, but I guess she couldn't be here on Friday evening, so I'm going to present it for her. I've been working with her as the director of our ePortfolio program at Bucknell. So we are pretty early in our campus-wide ePortfolio initiative. We're officially just completed our second year, and I've just completed my first year as director. But the education department had been doing ePortfolios before the official program started. So they're one of our early adopters, and we are just getting wonderful portfolios from their students that we can use to show off and get other people excited about this. So the educational student portfolio, or the education students portfolios, are used for assessment in the department. So the rubric that we use to assess the portfolio looks at our state standards. We're in Pennsylvania, so we've got our Pennsylvania competencies that link to our education department goals. And then we look through the portfolios for evidence of reflection that match up to each of these goals. Our poster has some QR codes. After I stop sharing, I will throw those in the chat so you can see those of 3 of our student portfolios. And our students have found these really valuable. They are using them to as a place to kind of put all their work together. They're also using them to share with potential employers and to get jobs after they graduate. Another thing we've highlighted here on our poster is that they're used during our social science research symposium. And so students have the opportunity to share their work before they start interviewing. So we've got a picture of one of our students sharing their portfolio at this research symposium, and a couple quotes from students who use their ePortfolio. And so both of these students mentioned using their ePortfolio in the interview process. They gave out QR codes to their portfolios, and students were really encouraged by this and thought they were really useful. They could see how many views they were getting on their portfolios, and how many people were interested in looking at what they were doing. All right, I'm going to stop sharing so I can see. Yeah. All right. I think that's about it, though. So
Great. Well, thank you for providing that overview. And then Sophie, would you like to talk a little bit about portfolios as nesting dolls?
Yes, I can. Let me pull up. Okay. Are you all seeing like a PDF of this? Okay, awesome. So my poster is about kind of like reimagining the use of ePortfolios. I actually presented with Debbie yesterday in one of the later evening sessions about how ePortfolios can be used as nesting dolls instead of just creating like a one size fits all type of situation. So the poster highlights all these different orientations of ePortfolios that I've created over the past few years. And then the final ePortfolio, my personal one, kind of serves as like the biggest nesting doll where all the other ones fit in. And it like maps it out, kind of like a network, not maps it out, but it connects to all of these other ePortfolio orientations that aren't necessarily like related to each other, but they all are related to my journey as a student and as just an individual. And so that's kind of the reimagining of ePortfolios, is how can you bring all of them together, connect them in a way, and is there a way to, you know, nest them within each other. And I'll stop sharing if I can remember how to do that. There we go.
Wonderful. Thank you. And even though Lisa's not here in person, Rachel Swinford has volunteered behind the scenes to present for her. So Rachel, if you want to be spotlighted, there we go. I will add you to the group, and then if you have access to Lisa's poster, feel free.
All right, so am I unmuted?
You are.
Okay. So the poster is sharing our team's journey over the last 8 years. If you start in 2016, but it actually goes all the way back to 2011. So it just kind of talks about when we initially tried ePortfolios for the very first time, we had major platform issues. We tried a very career-focused ePortfolio, which failed. After professional development, we then implemented a process ePortfolio that focused more on the student's personal growth and reflection of being a reflective practitioner rather than creating a product. Our team really focuses on sharing our journey. So we've now published 3 articles. This one here that talks about our initial implementation and how we recast that, giving students voice and choice. We then published in the ePortfolio review about innovative reflections. We participated in the AAC&U Institute, and with that, worked on 2 projects related to journey mapping and using ePortfolios within academic advising, both to hopefully increase student buy-in. And then we published an ebook as part of that. And then most recently, it's in press is another kind of striving towards excellence. So really talking about how we're never done editing our ePortfolio assignments and how it's ever evolving. And especially as generations change, the way we approach ePortfolio and how that looks different.
Excellent. Thank you, Rachel. Next up is Debbie with strategies to simplify portfolio building.
I'm going to share screen and hit slideshow again. So if any of you were at ePortfolios on the 5s, this is a poster for that. And just a shout out for the poster session. We're hoping to get visuals that connected with presentations, as well as opportunities for other people attending able to kind of share their work. So this is just a different iteration of streamlining and simplifying ePortfolios with ePortfolios on the 5s. At IUPUI, we're endorsing the idea that there's 5 ePortfolio basics, and you can design almost any website in any platform if you simply can pick a platform, have your template and tabs in place, insert text, insert images, visuals, and hyperlinks. You built your website. If you're worried about how the page looks, there's a 3x5 design basics. where you have contextualizing moments, images, pull out quotes, hyperlinks, and make sure we can read paragraphs and they're not too long. We talk about 5 different ePortfolio orientations. So we want students already thinking about building multiple ePortfolios with project-oriented, course-oriented, program and degree-oriented, professional and personal ePortfolios. And then for faculty, we say insert ePortfolios in at least 5 spots of the semester. Day 1, show students what they can achieve. When they finish something to put in the portfolio, build the ePortfolio and insert that item in class. When they have another item to add to the ePortfolio, set aside class time for that. Make sure that there's some peer review that's built in at least once where they're looking back at the work they've done. After the second artifact, if you're real stingy with peer review, at least that moment. And then with 2 weeks left in the semester, have a huge ePortfolio share and let them know they can make updates after that before they turn them in. And that is ePortfolios on the 5s. The slide deck is available here if you want to get back to the presentation from earlier in the day. Thank you all.
Great. And last but not least, Amy and Jeffrey, leveraging ePortfolios in the learning communities, careers courses, and internships.
All right, I guess I'll go ahead and share my screen if I can. So this is our 1-pager on, and don't mind me, I'm looking away from the camera for this because multiple screens and all. So what you're seeing in front of you is we have worked with ePortfolio since 2017, and we don't really have any much success with it in our tourism department. So what we did was we've been taking part in the ePortfolio Institute this year. And what we've come up with is actually, for me, a little profound. We've kind of come up with a continuum of the start through the mid-career through the capstone. And what we found during that time is that second year has always been our problem. So the mid-career is where we found problems. But what we did was we came up with this continuum with kind of a design thinking element involved with it, with the discover, develop, feedback, iterate, and deliver. And so what we found was that in the beginning, we're trying to do belonging, fit and purpose. And then in the middle, we want them to continue to develop their skills and really become the experts in their discipline. Do they really? Well, some do, some don't, right? And then you get to the end and we want them to realize their why, right? What's my why? And the passion and expertise should really come out through that capstone. And how are we doing all of this? You can see entries through the ePortfolio that kind of ramp up from simple, and we don't use reflection. We've kind of coined a new term within our own department called introspection, as opposed to reflection, because students look at the word reflection and they see a surface only and just tell us, oh, I felt this way, period, done, right? So we want them to kind of do a little bit more thinking. But that early stuff, I work with Bridge and I work with our FYS as well as intro in sport management. Amy works with the careers and that middle portion. And then Dr. Pierce works with capstone. So the 3 of us have been working together with all of this, but you can see they kind of ramp up. And by the end, we want them to showcase a showcase portfolio. So you start with the academic portfolio at the beginning, and then it ramps up to where, oh, these are my major projects. This is what I need to show employers. And while we haven't done this in practice as much, because we've kind of theorized this year, and we're going to start this in the fall, it's still kind of a work in progress. And I think it will be for a good amount of time. But as you can see, we've got students that have turned out pretty well by that picture on the right side. And so, that's pretty much it for the 5-minute pitch of what we did. So thank you.
Thank you. Amy, do you want anything you want to add to the conversation before we open it up for questions and comments from the crowd?
Would you like me to reshare?
No, I can just say a few words. No, I think Jeff gave a great quick overview. And I would just add that, he's the first point of contact with our students in the Bridge and the learning communities. So it all starts with Jeff's classes. And then when I have the students in the careers class, that's typically sophomore, junior year, we get a lot of transfer students. And so we do have to do a little bit of ePortfolio education at that point. And Rachel Swinford has been great about coming to my careers class to help with that stage and bringing the transfer students along. And then within that careers class, I have had particular success, I think, utilizing the Strength Finders assessment as an ePortfolio piece where they take the assessment, then they make a video, post as an artifact, write about their top strengths. And then similarly with volunteer assignments at our partners like the 500 Festival, Indianapolis Motor Speedway, they volunteer, they take photos, they post in their ePortfolio. And then it all culminates in the internship classes where then all of our students are required to do internships. And in their final internship course, they post a video in their ePortfolio reflecting on their internship.
And we had a question in the chat. What's the bridge, please? Is it a bridge class to bridge years, bridge to career? What is the bridge?
I can answer that really, really succinctly. So our students come in 5 days ahead of the first day of classes, and our first year students. They come in and we program from 9 a.m. till 4 p.m. their day. So they get everything from academic stuff, early prep stuff, to I love my favorite part of the week is taking my students on a walk through the city, right? You know, they get to explore all the landmarks around town and things like that. And I have sport management and tourism management. So there's nothing better than going around town to the hotels and the sporting venues. But that's pretty much what it is. It gives them a chance to get comfortable on campus before everybody arrives and the hullabaloo of day one occurs. And most of them actually do a really good job of connecting with their classmates and things like that. So IUPUI, kudos to them for coming up with something I think is really innovative.
Great, thanks. It sounds similar to, we have an equal opportunities program that has a summer bridge for students who might need some additional support before starting so that they begin their academic career in higher education at a point more similar to their peers. Excellent. Okay, well, then we've all heard these fantastic posters, and I'm sure that there are lots of questions. People want to know, how are you doing what you're doing? Why are you doing what you're doing? And how much does it cause you to get up in the morning with an excited sense of being? So I will put myself on mute and drop off the spotlights, and we can have a conversation about these 5 ideas that have been posed and see if there are ways we can apply them at our own institutions, or maybe have some crosstalk, especially since 4 of the 5 seem to have some similarities being from the same institution.
Maybe I'll make a start and ask a question. And so this question is for Sophie and Debbie for your nesting dolls. Because Sophie, I saw the similarity between what Debbie and you had presented, because you were talking about the nesting dolls and they were coming back up in Debbie's poster. So my question to you is, since you have created, Sophie, your portfolios as a student and are now helping kind of promote the idea of portfolios, you are a member of the Portfolio Studio. How do you see all of those ideas taken on by the students, but also by the faculty? Because of course, these 5 nesting dolls doesn't just mean that it can be portfolios for the students, but also faculty portfolios created in a similar way, maybe not with the specific terms, but also kind of maybe replaced by a tenure portfolio. How do you see your nesting dolls working is basically the short question.
Yeah, so as a student first, I mentioned it was a 20 by 20 presentation, so I didn't get to, I got 20 seconds to talk about it. So to expand a little bit, I mentioned yesterday, if anybody was in that session, that like I struggled at first, like when I was learning ePortfolios and when I was starting to create more than just one, how I could connect them all because I wanted them to all make sense with each other, and serve as like a showcase for like how I'm growing. And so from a student perspective, that's kind of how I view it, is to like showcase your first little nesting doll as like your first step into ePortfolios. And then the big one can be like how you're making sense of all of them together. And then for like a faculty perspective on how they might implement nesting dolls, I think one point for that would be to encourage the development and like continuation of any portfolio. If it's implemented in a course, or maybe even just Anthony mentioned in the student panel, how it's important to like emphasize like, hey, an e-portfolio is used in an academic sense right now. That's what you're creating it for. But that's not all it has to be type of thing. So like encouraging that type of creation with e-portfolios. That way you can just continue to build like your little nesting doll stack, and be motivated by an instructor or faculty that way. Does that answer your question?
It does, yes. Thank you so much, Sophie.
Yeah, thank you.
I would add that Sophie has so many little nesting dolls. And that you could put them in the big one and just shake them. Like it'd be a great sound machine. That the functionality of hers is really fascinating, to see like a study abroad one, but then it's really well developed from the trip. And it's always fun to work with her on her projects and get her perspectives. I will tell you that faculty, when they see it, they're like, oh, but beyond the like, oh, they could work that way, we haven't seen a whole lot of people using them in this fashion yet.
It's also for POI at the moment for Amy and Jeffrey. Amy, you're working in careers education and you're creating all these different portfolios, or the students create these different portfolios throughout their career and then end up with that showcase presentation portfolio. Have you had any feedback from employers? Are they looking at those portfolios? Are they more inclined to maybe hire a student or talk to a student in the first place who has a portfolio? What are they making out of it?
You know, that is a great question. And honestly, I have not had any feedback, only because we really have just launched our initiative in the last year. So we're so new to it, that I don't have any evidence to that. I do think it does have value, but I don't have feedback from employers yet.
Christina, I've heard a few things from some people that I know got hired, that there were some reflection / introspection stuff, or just plain old posts that people have put out on LinkedIn. And so that's kind of that same perspective. They just haven't put it into their e-portfolio. So that's kind of what we've run into, is people are doing it. They're just not doing it where we want them to, right? So, but they're finding that the students that do that, they're more apt to get hired from what I've seen, and reflecting on experiences, mostly industry experiences, even class projects. Some people have been hired from our capstone projects directly. And so things like that have kind of impactful, but we haven't been able to go with them all and put them all into one location. And that's where we're trying to get to.
But I think, Jeffrey, maybe that, yes, it would be wonderful if they were the link to the portfolio and you had that hard evidence of, yes, they have looked at it. But in a way, I wonder if it is also more the skills that the students learn, that introspection, how to reflect, how to introspect, how to go away from just that summary and express themselves, so that when they are going to an interview, they have thought all of those thoughts, and therefore have an answer that represents more of what they want to say, because they have that experience, they have had that practice as well.
And they have struggled with that. I will answer that bluntly, that they have struggled learning from us how to reflect. But they also, I think, more like look at it as kind of that, oh, I just need to do this and get it out of the way type thing. As opposed to something that I need to really think about and consider for my future. And maybe we haven't put enough initiative behind it to say, this is important, so maybe that you're right, though, that they need to know how to reflect. And we may not do a good enough job yet. We have to get into it. Thank you for the question, though.
Yeah, Christina, we don't have significant data from external stakeholders at this time. That's the diplomatic answer. But we hosted a roundtable with community stakeholders, with like the largest employers in Indianapolis kind of thing. And what we were hearing was they want applicants with a digital presence. And the number one employer of IUPUI grads said they don't hire anyone who doesn't have a digital presence online. So something like an ePortfolio, something like a LinkedIn digital resume kind of website thing. That's now what they just use as a drop point. If you don't have that, there are other applicants who do. We're going to hire people who have that because we can get more insights into who they are and what they've accomplished through a digital presence online.
And Debbie added on to exactly what I was thinking. And that was in sports, particularly, and tourism. We want hard evidence of you being able to do something, in the digital presence. Amy, you'll agree that it is massive for the sports side of things. Being as active as I am in sports, I talk to people that are hiring all the time, and they're just like, I don't know anything about them. I can't find them, or I see their Instagram and it's all them doing stuff they shouldn't be, that sort of thing, as opposed to stuff professionally oriented, or their LinkedIn doesn't have anything on it. It just has a job that they had when they were in high school, sort of thing. So their presence is not up to date. And so that's kind of what I think we've run into. But again, this is the start of something that we're hoping will have legs.
And do you have strategies to support students who may not have the same access to technology to make those videos of themselves performing skills in sports and making the 3-pointers or the hockey slap shots? But basically,
well, it's less about the active nature of the sport.
No,
It's
no,
more
I'm
about-
just giving you an example.
Yeah.
But the idea is that there are some students who don't have the same levels of access to technology. And so how do we level the playing field so we have an equitable process for students to find pathways to careers?
What I've done, I know a few times, is I've sat with students and actually recorded them, right? I'll have them in my office and I'll say, did you do a reflection on this? No. And then I'll say, all right, well, here's my phone. We're going to record this sucker and we're going to get you talking about it. Or, they're just going to be like, well, how am I going to get that? I said, I will email this to you. You just have to do what I told you to do with the ePortfolio and post it. I showed you how to do it. So let's go ahead and do it. And I will help you however possible. Now, is that scalable? No, but there's something out there, and we're trying through Canvas mostly. Our learning management system has been really good for us, considering we have, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it Kaltura that the students have access to? And we just haven't done a very good job, I think, of communicating that exists for them. So not only can they use Canvas for that, but they can also record it on Kaltura and share it anywhere. So the resources do exist, in other words.
Great, thanks.
I'd like to throw my question over to further in the east in the United States, to Rebecca in Pennsylvania. And that was the question around the portfolios and employers, because one of the student reflections that you had shared was where the student had shared their portfolio with a potential employer. Do you have any insight or evidence already how employers work with it, or even the sort of feedback that students get at the social science research symposium on campus? Are there sometimes also on campus employers who are looking at portfolios?
Yeah, so I'm not as familiar with this process as Janet would be, unfortunately. Yeah, so I don't think in the research symposium, I think that's just a chance for them to kind of practice, but that's not actually, that doesn't involve any employers. But also, traditionally in teaching kind of interviews before we had electronic portfolios, you would take your big binder of paper portfolios, right? So so this is kind of replacing that in these kind of interviews, right? Students are, instead of having to have their binder of paper, they can just pull up their ePortfolio electronically and kind of give their evidence, right? And I think a lot of times too, they don't use them actually in the interview, right? But they can share them beforehand, or, right? Also, we know the process is a big deal. So just the process of actually pulling all this information together and thinking about how it connects and how it relates to the competencies that they're supposed to show, is really beneficial in their interviews.
Thank you, Rebecca. I think that is a really, really good point, that it helps with that preparation, because they are kind of really sorting, organizing their thoughts in there.
Jeffrey.
I thought I'd raise my hand. Rebecca, I wanted to ask you about a couple of things. One, I'm looking at Lainey's portfolio. This is fantastic. Do you guys have, you're using Digication? This is a platform I have not seen, but this is what we want our e-portfolios to look like. How do we get there? That's my question to everybody in the panel here. How do we get there? Thank you.
Yeah, Lainey's is really spectacular. And it came in our first year, and we did kind of share it all over the place because it's so good. But yeah, we use Digication, which is a platform that Bucknell has a subscription to. And yeah, anybody else can feel free to jump in. She really did that too without a lot of guidance, because in that first year, even our faculty didn't know a lot of like the technical details. And she's an education major, so she's not like a programmer, but it doesn't take, having that kind of platform, it doesn't take any kind of web development skills. It just takes kind of the creativity and the time to get in there and figure out what you can do. But I'll stop now and let anybody else jump in.
Universities having a single platform like Digication or PebblePad can be a real asset as far as ease of access. And I would say, like, what I've seen from Digication and PebblePad over the last 5 to 7 years is just a huge shift in design tools, and they are looking better and better and providing I think a more polished professional option for students with those two particular platforms. And Jeffrey, we can work with you all to try to get some platform templates that you want for your students, and then hopefully we're pointing them in the right direction.
Well, I just sent you a message, but in reality, we're using Google Sites and Wix, but there's so many options there that I think they may get lost in it. And
right.
if this has got like something that is formatted, like the way this young lady did this, I mean, this right here is an A. I mean, it's 4 of them, 5 of them, one for every section, 7 of them, whatever's there. I mean, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. No, it's good stuff.
I would like to offer up my services as an ePortfolio person on same campus as you. I'd like to offer either like an instructional side if you're interested, but I'm also working on Google Sites templates and stuff. So if that's something that could support both faculty and students at the same time, making it a little bit easier on faculty on how to like reach out to students and be like, hey, this is a great starting point. Granted, they don't have to use the template and make it exactly what it looks like or something. That's where the creativity comes in, but I think it does serve as like a great foundation for them, especially if that's where you might be finding like some like gapping between like students and getting started and continuing their ePortfolios. Like, how do they keep moving with it? What do they add? How do they add it? Where do they add it? Types of things. So would love to talk to you more about that since we're on the same campus.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And by the way, I loved your presentation about the nesting dolls, and that's kind of what I want to get to.
Love to hear it. Thank you.
Christina.
think we hadn't yet asked a question of Rachel as a representative of the kinesiology department. Thank you so much for outlining the time that it took you to be where you are here today. And I think at this year's conference, we can certainly say e-portfolios are well established at IUPUI. There are so many wonderful presentations and sessions of the various teams. So it's wonderful to see the work that you're doing. So where to from here? Because the timeline has a arrow going forward. Do you already have any plans for the next academic year?
Yeah, so where to from here is our next obstacle, which is faculty buy-in. So currently we have a lot of faculty using it freshman year, not many into, well, we don't really have that many 300 level, but we have some 200 using it and a couple of our 400 classes. So my goal is to do individual meetings with faculty, showing them that when we come to the capstone course, nearly every student puts this experience from your class into their e-portfolio. So one I can think of in particular within exercise science, it's a service learning course where they all work one-on-one with either a child or an adult who has a disability, and they train or work with this person on movement skills over a 6-week period. And students almost always put that in their e-portfolio as a meta reflection in their capstone. So asking that faculty, would you be willing to replace your 10-page project that you have them turn in at the end of the semester, which is a reflection, and do an e-portfolio instead to get a little bit more touch points along the way. So better integration into the curriculum is our goal.
Thanks, and I look forward to hearing how that's going at next year's conference.
Rebecca, what got you into the e-portfolio line of work at Bucknell?
Yeah, so it's part of what I was typing in the chat. But we have a NSF project that is actually for our electrical and computer engineering department. And, you know, we're interested in changing the way engineering education is done. That's kind of the purpose of these types of grants. And so one of the things that we're looking at is e-portfolios. So as a way for students to think more about, you know, who they are and what they might do, kind of to expand that view of who an engineer is and what an engineer can do. Yeah, so that's part of it. So I was gonna be doing this work anyway as part of that grant, and it coincided with the university launching the program, so I jumped in, all on board.
I want to figure out how to connect with NSF money. That's the one thing I've learned this summer. There's so many amazing NSF projects that would be perfect matches for e-portfolios. And how do we support faculty doing the NSF work to integrate it? And not so much that we get money, but so that they prioritize their students' external facing research and projects for exactly that reason, to kind of expand opportunities and build more comprehensive digital presence.
Because you brought up the fives, and apologies that I wasn't at your other session yet. I'll have to watch the recording for that. How come that it's always 5 things and not 3 things or 7 things?
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
I would say 3 is too little and 7's too much. What's funny is I came up with like 1 5s. I came up with a 3x5. And then I'm like, well, but there's only, if we just do these 5 tools, that helps build it, right? And then we're like, how can we get people to do more variations of e-portfolios? And so it's like, well, there's kind of these different styles of e-portfolios, like the project so we did just have 4. And we're like, well, we have these other 5s, let's make it 5. And then when we were looking at just faculty, I'm like, I definitely plug it in 5 times. So that's, we got a really good number. And look at your fingers on your hand from, I mean, not everybody, but like most of us, like it's, I don't know, I may have 4 after the summer because of work around the house and getting to use some cool saws and things, but but for now, the ePortfolios on the 5 just kind of resonated. And I love cheesy cliches. I know they're terrible. No one else loves them, but yeah.
I guess once you're gotten into it, finding another one instead of having 4, you are really then on the mission to make everything work. Yeah. Jeffrey, I think, did you say that you were participating in the AEC&U Institute?
Yeah, both Amy
Yes.
and I are. Yeah,
You're
we've got,
currently.
yep.
Yeah, and Rachel was on the in the institute. How has that experience helped you develop your portfolio strategy, portfolio plan?
Well, here's the thing you saw, that's what's coming from it, and that's this map. We were trying to map out our curriculum. There's a trio of us, Dr. David Pierce, myself, and Amy, and Amy was the lead on all of this. So I've kind of been choking her out here in this meeting a little bit and not letting her talk much, but for me, it's this process of this ePortfolio Institute kind of sparked the thought process of how do we take the degree map and figure out how our department fits that ePortfolio model. So we set up our courses to fit that start, mid-career capstone. And the capstone is not just the capstone class, it's anything they do years 3 and 4, basically. So it was basically, that's what sparked that discussion, was getting into this institute. And then all of a sudden, I just kind of came up with this map, and then David took it from there and made it into this big circle with deliver and all that stuff in it. And I'm like, great, the team that we need to have together is together. And Amy's jumped in and thrown the career stuff in, and the samples and all. I wish I was intuitive enough and innovative enough to be able to throw QR codes on there. So I think that was that you, Rebecca, that threw that on there? Yes. I'm not that innovative. I didn't even think of it, but we do have samples that we've been using in a presentation, and just the stuff that comes from her class, but they don't take it to the next level. And that's where we've got to figure out how at the beginning, and this comes to me, how do we at the beginning make it so that it is a priority and it is extremely important to the student to collect these artifacts along the way, and then get to the capstone and say, this is how I need to understand all of this learning. And it's helped me in a lot of ways of the meta reflection, like Rachel said, right? For me, even, that meta reflection of how good have I been in their career coming up through, you know what I'm saying? And that's what I've picked up from this institute so far. I mean, it's been less about the content that they've given and more about they've sparked me to start thinking deeper about it. Amy, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, and Jeff, I think that's well said. I would add that Jessica Chittum is our mentor. And so we've been meeting with Jessica, every several months, and we create a kind of an action plan with a timeline. And so we were doing, because of kind of the success of kinesiology with Rachel's team, they're in our same school. And so just in conversations, we've been, very motivated by their success, and they were very encouraging. But participating in the Institute, I think, really helped us give a structure to some of the things we were already doing, but it just helped us kind of organize it and scaffold all the classes, identify the key faculty members, do outreach. For me, I felt like the organization and action plan that we got from it was very helpful to just launching us.
Other questions from the participants in the room who haven't had a chance to speak, or maybe you have some ideas that you want to put in the chat, or maybe you're just happy to listen to the conversation, but want to make sure in the last 7 minutes here, 7 ± 2. that there's space for everyone to participate.
I'm very open to anyone providing strategies for how we can get first years to say, oh, this is important.
I think part of that, which we heard about with the transparent assignment template conversation earlier today, explaining the why. Why am I doing this? Because if students don't see that, then the motivation to do it, period, is harder to fathom. And I'll ask Sophie to back me up on that, or tell me, Kevin, you've got it all wrong. But I know from my own interaction with the students in my class that knowing why they're doing something makes it much easier for them to take it on as an additional responsibility, especially when so many students have competing obligations like working for an employer, taking care of children, or adults who need caregiving support. And so I've had students tell me like, hey, no offense to you, instructor, but I'm not going to participate in any discussions because the number of points I can earn is not enough to make me want to do that. I don't see the value otherwise, and I'm okay getting a B in your class because right now I'm working and I'm taking care of 2 kids, and basically I'm meeting my goals even if I'm not meeting yours. So when we're asking like, hey, why are people not doing this? Well, we have to look at, well, what are they doing and how can we make them see that this can help them towards their personal goals, their professional goals, their academic goals, or we may not have them do it.
I think you don't win them all. I mean, I've just had to I don't win them all, but I really try. And I've had opportunities to work very closely with some students who, even pulled out of a class before the semester was done. And there's still value. It doesn't mean it's a loss, and it doesn't mean either of us wasted our time because we made progress together. I think another really critical component is to give something to students to do, something really valuable that they're invested in, that they want to put in an e-portfolio, that they're motivated to share. So a lot of times that's student voice and choice, but sometimes it's giving them permission to pursue their passion and then finding a way to streamline that open door with course goals. So, I mean, if they want to work backstage at a Pacers thing, create an opportunity for them to go and be able to use the class as an excuse. Like for my college class, I have to observe a recording session, I have to get behind a bench and see what this is like. I think I had one of your students who put down the floors before the games. And I was like, why aren't you taking pictures of this? Why aren't you videoing the way you transform the arena, like a before and after? And he would come in really tired and fall asleep in class. And at first I was like, hey, are you okay? And he's like, I was up all night. And I'm like, what were you doing? And he was laying the floor for the next Pacers game. And they had to then, they flipped it from another event and had to get it back. So, and the other thing is a lot of them are already doing cool stuff. Like you're already doing it, record it, take pictures of it, and don't just put it on LinkedIn. And in fact, put it in your ePortfolio first, and then hyperlink to the ePortfolio. Just take that first paragraph. That way you've got space to build it out. And you're cultivating this cycle. They're building their digital presence. They're controlling their digital footprint, and they're moving forward. But I'm doing a little workshop on Wednesday in Vancouver. That's basically ePortfolios aren't as meaningful until we give students something valuable that they want to put in it and showcase and display.
I think from a student perspective, Kevin, yeah, I agree. Absolutely. If they don't know why, what's the point? I am a pretty studious person. I have been since I was like 8. So that has come naturally to me, but I know it doesn't for all students. And being a consultant and like meeting with these students where they're like, I have to do this, but like I don't want to, and I don't know why type of thing. And so that's partly the reason why we include that section on like instructional e-portfolios that we create for faculty and students, is because if it's consistently on all of these, then they'll always have access to the reason why they're doing these things, from course to course, program to program, that type of thing.
And Sophie was on a team where she didn't always get a lot of help from her peers. And that happens, right? But I do think in the end, the e-portfolio that she built, that they contributed some to, was a valuable artifact for their community client. And so it's real. The more things are authentic, the more that they can use them. I think they can invest. There's a reason to invest. I'm not just giving it to a professor or putting it in this little space and without an authentic audience already in mind.
Excellent. Well, I'd like to thank all of the poster teams, Janet in spirit with Rebecca from Bucknell, Sophie, Lisa in spirit with a hat tip to Rachel for stepping up and covering that topic, Debbie, Amy, and Jeffrey. So thank you all for sharing what you're doing in poster format, but also engaging us in conversations around ePortfolio practices, because I think we can all gain, and I think we may have even made a connection where Sophie's going to help Jeffrey meet his goals. So the power of ABLE, bringing people together, that's what we do here.